The day I got lost, I was working, theoretically. My colleague Frank and I were sent to represent our food company at one of the country's biggest trade fairs. It's not a great job. Our boss couldn't be bothered to pay for any of the extra baggage that came with it. No compensation for traveling, no extra payment for setting up the stall. Nothing. Even worse, our work hours would be so long as so often we'd have to man the stall from early morning until late in the evening, pretending to be as happy to be there as the fair's many visitors. All the while, our boss insisted that we wear these stupid caps with our company's name on it. But Frank and I had a little arrangement going to make the best of our shitty situation. He had been in the trade business for most of his life, and he knew trade fairs inside out. He knew when things would go slow, especially in the early morning or the late evening. Frank also knew that one person was enough to man the stall during those times. This allowed the other to roam the place, to relax or even take a nap. The fair we attended that day was huge. It was held in a giant, sprawling complex comprising various halls, out areas, restaurants, and much more, all connected by a variety of hallways. It was pretty much the equivalent of a small town. After we'd finished getting the stall ready for business, Frank offered to take care of the morning shift, and I was quick to agree. I had been wanting to have a look around ever since we arrived. It wasn't a luxury we could usually afford since we were trapped in our stall for the fair's entire duration. What can I say? I like food, especially meat. When I'd seen that there was an entire hall centering on exotic meat products, well, I had to go. I wished Frank the best of luck with the morning shift, stuffed the damn cap in my pocket, and set out on my merry way. Being the idiot that I am, I just started walking. It wasn't long before I got lost. The place really was huge, and even worse, everything looked the same. After finding and tinkering with one of the interactive display maps, I figured out where I was and where I had to go. Hall 19. It wasn't long, however, before I got lost again. In frustration, I consulted another map display, and I learned that I'd somehow taken a wrong turn, and I was now in Hall 12. Great. That's in an entirely different wing of the complex. This time I snapped a picture of the map, and I followed it to the letter. Whenever I entered a new hall, I checked the big sign telling me which one I was in before I cross-checked my position on the map. I left Hall 12, walked past Hall 11, and eventually through Hall 9. All that was left was to cross Hall 14, and I'd be at my destination. After crossing Hall 14, however, and following another hallway, I suddenly found myself in front of Hall 24. I was dumbfounded, and I pulled out my phone again. For almost a minute, I went over the map, but as much as I searched, I didn't find any Hall 24. The highest hall number I could find was Hall 22. Still confused, but not sure what to do, I entered Hall 24. After a few minutes of stumbling around, I found another map display. The small red dot told me that I was indeed in Hall 24. I frowned. How the hell was there even a Hall 24? When I compared the map in front of me to the one on my phone, I noticed something right away. The map in front of me was different. It was bigger, and several halls seemed to have been added. For a moment, a strange feeling washed over me, and my eyes darted around looking for, I don't even know what. Everything around me was as normal as it could be. Visitors were checking out stalls, talking to sales reps, or indulging in the various samples. Soon enough, however, something made me look up. So far, I had hurried over the fair, not giving any of the stalls a better look. Now that I did, and really looked at them, I saw how strange some of the advertised products were. Right in front of me, a stall was presenting a fruit called Hilarious. By that point, I had been working in the food industry for a good few years, and I considered myself having a rather solid grasp on it. Yet, in all those years, I had never heard of a fruit called Hilarious. When I googled it, I came up with big fat 0 results. My interest piqued. I approached the stall. Who knows, it might be one of those weird new mixed breeds that had grown in popularity. What I saw, however, looked unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was a slimy, bright orange thing, covered in some kind of spiky fur, is the best I can explain it. The moment I'd made it to the counter, I couldn't help but reach out for it. When my fingers made contact, however, the thing twitched and produced a disgusting wet squeak. Cursing, I cringed back, landing me a few annoyed glances and not a few giggles. For a few more moments, I stood there, staring at the stall and the weird orange fruit. Then I shrugged and went on my way. Phone in hand and staring at my map, I tried to find my way back. After following what I assumed to be the same hallway that I'd entered from, I should have been back in Hall 14. But the entire layout was different. A swift look at the hall sign told me that I had somehow ended up in Hall 27. How the hell had I even gotten here? I had followed the same damn hallway. There should be an exit to my right, leading to an outer area, but it was gone. Instead, I saw another hallway, one that supposedly led to Hall 31. I frowned. How was the place that big? There shouldn't even be a Hall 31. Hell, it shouldn't even go up to 27. And I shouldn't be in Hall 14. At least, if I were to trust the map on my phone. For the next few minutes, I stumbled on, trying my best to ignore the strange, unknown product all around me. Here and there, I would stop, desperately searching for a map display, but saw none. Suddenly, someone called out to me, "Can I help you, sir?" When I turned around, I saw an info desk worker. The woman had stopped a few meters away from me and must have noticed my predicament. "Yeah, sorry, I guess I got lost," I admitted, giving her an embarrassed laugh. The woman also laughed, or rather, giggled. It was a strangely throaty giggle. Only now that I focused on her did I see that most of her face was hidden behind long strands of thick, dark hair. "I've been trying to find Hall 19, but the maps are..." My voice trailed off. The longer I stared at the woman, the more I felt something was wrong with her. She just stood there, and I watched as she pulled out some kind of electronic contraption. "Problem with maps," she started in a now much quieter voice. "Old versions." What the hell was she going on about? This was one of the biggest, most prestigious fairs in the entire country. Why did they display older versions of the maps, and how'd they just add a dozen new buildings to the complex? No, something did not add up. "Where you want to go, sir?" she asked, in her half-whispering voice. She still hadn't moved, still hadn't bothered to brush her hair aside. As I listened to her, I wondered once more what the hell was wrong with her. Even her way of speaking was strange. Her English was over-accentuated, but at the same time, it seemed to take her effort to bring out each individual word. Hall 19, I said eventually. "Not far," she simply said. Then she turned around and began walking. The way she moved was as unnatural as the way she spoke. Instead of stepping forward, she merely shuffled her feet, dragging herself forward as if something was wrong with her legs. It made her entire body move in a strangely jerky motion. "Coming, sir?" she asked after a few moments, but didn't bother to even turn around. Instead of moving, I just stared at her. Somehow, I knew I shouldn't follow her. This woman wasn't normal. Not normal at all. No thank you. I'm sure I can find it on my own." Not even waiting for an answer, I hurried away. I half ran past stalls and visitors, and only once I'd made it past a corner did I feel safe enough to relax. I took a deep breath. Then I looked around, trying to find my bearings. It hadn't been more than a few seconds when I heard the same half-whispered voice again. "Can I help you, sir?" It sounded exactly the same as before. The same weird English. When I looked over my shoulder, I saw her there, only a few meters behind me, staring at me from behind those thick strands of hair. I couldn't help but shiver. Why the hell was she following me? Instead of saying anything, I turned around, hurried towards a hallway, and fled into another market hall. Yet, this new hall was even more different. Things just didn't add up. The layout made no sense. Stalls were placed haphazardly, with no rhyme or reason. When I checked the sign above to find out what hall I had ended up in, I almost laughed. Instead of a number, all I saw were strange symbols. The stalls, too, were covered in them. The products presented were even stranger than the hilarious that I'd seen before. They were utterly alien and seemed half alive. I rushed past stalls and disgusting things as an overwhelming feeling of being lost, of not belonging, came over me. Eventually, I stopped. I hid between two stalls, far away from the bustle of visitors, and I closed my eyes. Don't give in to it. You're okay, idiot. Just calm down. Yet, when I opened my eyes, I realized it wasn't just the environment that was strange. The people were too. They were all acting normal, but the way they moved, the way their bodies and limbs worked, was wrong. As I stared after one of these people, I couldn't help but think that someone had taken them apart and put them back together the wrong way. They were human, yes, but a few details just didn't match up. Their arms seemed backwards, their facial features slightly warped, and their torsos. No, just don't focus on it. Just find your way back. To hell with Hall 19. Taking another breath, I approached one of the strange people around me. A woman. I tried my best to ignore her weird body and strange face. Excuse me, I'm trying to get back to Hall 7, but I trailed off when I noticed her wide eyes and confused expression. A fearful noise escaped her mouth before she turned around and hurried away. As she did, I saw the way her legs moved. It looked like there were too many joints in them. For a moment, I almost lost it because of this surreal situation I found myself in. Then, I heard a strange, half-whispered voice coming from nearby. Sweat broke out all over my body. It's a coincidence, I told myself. But when I turned around, I saw the same strange woman. This time, however, she wasn't alone. She was talking to a pair of security guards. Both of them looked as strange as she did. I shivered when I noticed them making the same jerky movements. When she turned in my direction, I ran. I knew I shouldn't, no, couldn't, be found by her again. But when I looked over my shoulder, I saw that all three of them were watching after me. I dashed away, turned right, then left, past haphazardly placed stalls, not even sure what exactly I was running from. As I did, I pulled out the damn cap and threw away the jacket I was wearing. It wasn't much, but maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't recognize me. The layout of the hall, however, was too disorienting. There wasn't a place to hide, and I knew that if I stayed here, it was only a matter of time before they'd discover me. Then, I saw a tightly knit group of people making their way towards a hallway. I instantly ran in their direction, trying to mingle, to hide between them. When I reached them, however, I saw how wrong they all were. Some were too short, others too tall. Some were shambling around, while others were slumped over. In between, I saw children running here and there. They were moving on all fours, more like animals than human beings. When one of them focused on me, I saw glaring, animalistic eyes. I covered my face before I pushed myself past the strange gathering and entered the hallway ahead. This hallway, however, differed from any I'd seen before. It was small, almost constricting. More of a tunnel, really. The floor was dirty, and the only light that reached me came from randomly placed yellowish lamps. As strange as this place was, though, I could do nothing but hurry on ahead, driven by an almost primal fear of that woman and her companions. I ran on and eventually entered the hall at its end. I had barely crossed a few meters when I noticed how strange the place was. This wasn't an ordinary market hall. Neither was it one of the disorientating, haphazardly thrown together ones. No, this place didn't feel like it had been planned out or even constructed. It looked more like a shanty town, a place that had grown bigger and bigger over a long period. The ground was as dirty as that of the hallway, and a variety of stains and fluids covered it. I saw caskets and boxes everywhere. I saw empty cages and, occasionally, chunks of meat discarded and left to rot. The air was heavy, with a disgustingly sweet smell. In an instant, I pushed myself past empty crates and behind a stack of boxes. What the hell was this place? My eyes darted around, trying to find out where I had ended up. Eventually, I found the sign, but the hall's number was all wrong. At first, I didn't know what it said, but after a few seconds, I could finally decipher it. It was supposed to be Hall 37. The numbers, however, they were backwards and distorted. They looked as if someone who had never seen numbers before had written them. And that's when it clicked. It wasn't just the sign. It was this entire place. This wasn't a fair or a market hall. It was an imitation. One that was all wrong. The people, the things populating this place, they too were nothing but cheap imitations of the human form. They wore mismatched pieces of clothing, ones that were too small or too big, and shoes that just didn't fit. Their entire form was warped, as if something horrible was hidden below their outfits. When I focused on one such person, a cold shower went down my spine. My entire body felt cold. A nervous chuckle almost escaped my mouth, and I had to scream at myself to not move until they had passed by. what I thought was a face was not. It was a mask. A drawing of a happy face, frozen in a perpetual half smile. But it was too simple, too cheap, and reminded me of a child's crayon drawing. The strange person shuffled past my hiding place, and then stopped in front of a stall, or something that was supposed to look like one. It was nothing but a crude construction, made from wood and rubble, an amalgamation of trash. Hooks dangled from it here and there, each one sprouting a chunk of raw, bloodied meat. I watched as the thing approached a hook. In a swift motion, it tore down one of the dangling chunks and pushed it below its mask. For a few seconds, it seemed to chew on the meat. Then, a long, black tongue slithered out from under the mask, and I watched as it licked blood and pinkish goo from its misshapen hand. A while longer, the thing just stood there, staring at the remaining chunks of meat before it shuffled onwards. By now, I had made out that a similar thing was manning the stall, one wearing another of the crayon masks. A strange, grunt-like sound escaped its mouth when it saw the empty hook. I watched in confused horror as it approached something covered by a piece of clothing. It was a cage, and for a moment, it moved the cloth aside and seemed to check what was inside. When it did, I heard something. Sobbing. The sobbing was unmistakably that of a human being. The cloth went back down, and then it vanished behind the stall, tearing aside a curtain I hadn't even known was there. I only saw for a moment, but I could have sworn I saw blood and gore, and something that might have once been a human body. I barely covered my mouth to drown out the scream that wanted to escape my mouth. Then, still huddled between crates and boxes, I realized what those stains were. Those fluids on the floor all around me. Blood. Human blood. And those chunks of meat. This time, I could do nothing, and I threw up right where I was. Almost instantly, heads turned to where I was. Heads sprouting the same smiling crayon-like faces. In a frantic motion, I stumbled out from between those crates. Before any of those things could react, I ran. I rushed past them, past the non-stalls they had erected, and then back into the dark, tunnel-like hallway. I had almost made it, had almost escaped this hellhole of a place, when a hand closed around my arm. "Can I help you, sir?" The same words. The same damn words. The same voice, as if to mock me. That same damn woman. The thing in front of me repeated them once more. "Can I help you, sir?" This time, I realized what was wrong with her voice. It wasn't the half-whispering. Neither was it the weird English. No, It was the voice itself. It sounded as if someone, or something, was trying to emulate a human being speaking. Another cheap imitation. Another one that was all wrong. No, let me go. I tore at the arm holding me in place, twisted my body, only to be pulled backwards. At that moment, the hair that covered the face was thrown aside. For the first time, I saw the face. I instantly cringed back. It wasn't one of the simple, crayon-like faces. No, it almost looked real. Almost. It was a mask, but one made of skin. Of lifeless, human skin. And then something moved. Not the face, but whatever was hidden below it. I could see a hidden mouth. Could almost see it turning into the outlines of a twisted grin. I screamed in terror. Tried once more to get away. But it was too late. The commotion had been noticed. From the entrance of the knot hall in the back, hulking, shambling figures were making their way towards us. By now, they weren't even trying to keep their imitation alive anymore. No, all that remained of it were the empty, half-smiling crayon faces.
"Can I help you, sir?"
This time, the words came out in the same deep voice I'd heard before. The image of those cages returned to me. Of the hooks. Of the chunks of meat dangling from them. That would be me, I realized. That was what awaited me. And then, my fear, my terror, were pushed aside by rage. No, it fucking wouldn't be me. I was not livestock. My free hand shot forward, and in a single motion, I tore apart the disgusting, dead skin covering the thing's face. What I saw below was nothing but twisted flesh and scar tissue. An inhuman shriek, one of outrage, escaped its mouth, and I felt the hand holding onto me let go. As the thing covered its face, I dashed away. I was out of the tunnel in an instant, and then back into this disorganized hall. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see what was coming after me. I just ran. My flight took me through hall after hall, each of them stranger than the one before. They were all twisted and wrong. One seemed to be built vertically, with stalls stacked on top of one another continuously. Another was populated by stalls that seemed to have grown and were more alive than the beings moving between them. More than once, figures pointed and stared at me. Some cringed away, for I was as alien to them as they to me. Yet sometimes, I felt hands reaching out for me, trying to hold me in place. In sheer and utter panic, functioning purely on adrenaline, I ran on. My lungs were burning. My legs were getting weaker. I had no goal, no direction. I just ran on, trying desperately to flee the surreal place that my world had become. Then, I collided with someone stepping out in front of me. I stumbled, lost my balance, and crashed to the floor. I cursed, fought my way back up, and was about to keep running when a hand closed around my arm. In my mind, I could already hear those same words. Instead, I found myself face to face with a man who looked entirely human. A security guard. Yet, I didn't stop. I tried to get away and eventually pulled my arm free. This was nothing but another ploy, I thought. Another fake who was out to get me. I stumbled another step, then another, before I fell once more. My eyes darted around, searching for hulking, shambling figures. But all I saw were faces. Normal faces. Some seemed worried, others confused. A group of teenagers nearby snickered behind their hands. I even saw a couple dragging their son away the moment I stared at them. But they were all unmistakably human. By now, the security guard had motioned for his colleagues to come over. As they stood in front of me, their mouths moved, but my brain didn't seem to function. Once more, one of them got a hold of me, pulling me to my feet. In an instant, however, I tore myself free again. "The hell's the matter with him?" one of them said. Another mentioned the words drunk and drugs. I finally opened my mouth and began rambling about being followed and hunted down before I shut my mouth again. "You saw what? Someone following you?" "No." I started shaking my head. "I mean, yes. There's this woman and those men, but..." My voice trailed off when I saw their expressions and how they were staring me down. It was clear they weren't buying a word of what I was saying. "I think it's best for you to leave the premises, sir," the one holding onto my arm said. With that, they swiftly escorted me from the complex. Still confused, but more than relieved to finally be escaping the place, I made my way back to our hotel. When Frank arrived, he was pissed. While I was sitting on the bed, he laid into me. He ranted on and on about where I'd been, what I thought I was doing, and even told me that he'd informed the boss about me skipping out on the job. I only half listened, still plagued by what I'd seen just hours ago. Eventually, Frank got a hold of my collar and pulled me up close. "The fuck's the matter with you, Danny?" At first, I only stared at his angry face, but then I opened my mouth. "I don't know, I think I got lost. Never mind." When Frank heard this, he let go of me, and the anger on his face evaporated. "What happened? What did you see?" Instead of answering, I shook my head and told him that he wouldn't believe me. For a moment, Frank continued staring at me before he grumbled something and left it at that. Later that evening, though, when the two of us went out to have some beers, I finally opened up to him. Frank listened without saying a word. Once I was done, though, I couldn't help but laugh again. I told him I must be overworked, or perhaps I had a panic attack. Frank, however, didn't join in with my laughter. Instead, his face grew dark. No, you did get lost. What do you... Listen, Danny. These days, they make these places, these fairs, too damn big. There's too many people. It's only natural that some get lost or end up in places that they don't belong. Happens all the time. Just no one ever talks about it. How do you know? Frank didn't answer that. Instead, he just sat there, staring at his beer, avoiding my probing eyes. Best thing you can do is not to wander around. Just stay at your stall, he finally whispered. When he looked up again, I saw his expression, saw the sad, anxious look that now filled it. For the next couple of minutes, I pressed him to tell me what he meant. I asked him if he had gotten lost himself, but Frank never said another word about it. It's been years since it all happened. I don't work with Frank anymore, and neither do I work at trade fairs. I just couldn't do it. Whenever I went near those giant, disorientating halls and saw the countless people entering them, I was pushed into a state of almost panic. In time, however, as the years went by, what happened that day became nothing but distant memories. Just recently, though, having finally gotten over my fears, I did visit one of our local trade fairs with a friend of mine. As we walked from hall to hall, I couldn't help but look around, watching my surroundings. I saw them. I saw the few select people who seemed bewildered, confused, lost. It's always people who are a tad bit different, a tad bit wrong. People who just don't seem to belong. And I can always see those who are preying on them. Figures who pretend to be info desk workers, security guards, even sales reps. And I can see them lead them away. Lead them into directions that shouldn't lead anywhere. Or that lead somewhere else entirely.